I have had the opportunity to have Marcus Sheridan on a podcast. I believe this is our third time, and I've rerun his episode multiple times. So this guy has had more than 5 to 6 appearances on our podcast now. And the reason is because he just knows so much and he gets it, and he's so entertaining and he's so full of knowledge. Let me give you an example. The guy is not only a sales expert, but a marketing expert, which can allow both parties to be able to be aligned and to speak together. You're going to see, based on the content today, why I'm so excited and why I'm a big Marcus fan. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, I have the one and only Marcus Sheridan. And today, as I mentioned in the teaser, he's going to come and bring a wealth of knowledge. Marcus is one of those individuals that not only has he had a big stint on our podcast, but is because he's entertaining and educational, and he pushes the boundaries when it comes to breaking out of the norms. Marcus is a speaker. He has an agency, and they work with organizations and empower individuals like you and me to be able to do the things that we need to do to make our business thrive, generate grab attention, and to be able to generate net new business from it. So I love him. I love all of his stuff. He has a new book that just came out, and it's coming out in April. The proven system to attract. It's called Endless Customers: The Proven System to Attract Customers and Grow Your Business. The things they shared, the 4 pillars in this book, we break them down in this episode. The prelude into the episode, into these pillars, you're going to really enjoy. I didn't get a chance to go probe and go deep into all of the different pillars because of the 4 pillars, because we just didn't have enough time. But the things that you get from this episode, boy, I'm telling you, sis, you're going to be like, I'm signing up for that. You're going to check it out. You're going to love it. As we dive in, you get a chance to hear why Marcus what his prognosis is right now when it comes to the traditional methods of generating net new leads and net new business. Marcus, welcome back on the show.
Donald, it's been too long, man. Ready to do this. Yeah.
I know. I think you are the only guest I've had. I think this episode, Marcus, is going to be episode number 1877. And
Good.
let me do a Google search, because I think this needs to be stat. I think you have some big stats for us. You're probably the most repeated guest. And even if it's not, I think we did 3 episodes, but I've repeated your episodes probably like on reruns like 3 or 4 times. So you probably have about 6 pieces of publishing out of all of that. So we need to send you an award.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the scheduler right now. You got some stats. So team, we got to make sure we connect with Marcus and let him know how many he has altogether. So this is why it wasn't even a second thought when we got the introduction, with your latest book and with what you're doing, to if you would be interested in coming back on the show. And if we're interested in having you, and I was like, don't even ask a question, just get the guy scheduled. So I would love to get a glimpse into what's going on, in world right now, and what prompted another book. Seems like you have a lot more things to do, but you're writing books again.
Yeah. Well, I'm really known for They Ask You Answer, which was a book that has done very well, and it's a sales and marketing book, really, online, like how to win with sales and marketing online. And it's a nice little framework. And the thing was, September 2022, that time frame, AI shows its head, and now all of a sudden the whole world's different, and we continue to see that being the case, Donald. And that's why if you talk to a lot of businesses today, they're saying, I'm having a harder time generating leads. I am not satisfied with my agency. I mean, more than 50% of all businesses currently that are working with an agency are planning on changing their agency within the next 12 months. So that's not good. And that's because agencies are having a hard time doing the work that needs to be done for their clients to have success, because they're not adjusting to this new world that we live in that is, of course, so AI driven. And, so it's just fascinating times. And plus, it's just harder to win trust right now, too. There's a pretty big trust deficit in the marketplace. And a lot of companies don't know how to win that. And so you put this all together and you see a lot of folks that are struggling.
Yeah, it's fascinating you bring that up. I had a conversation with somebody this morning, and we were talking about what's the future we see with AI. I did a post on LinkedIn, and it was around asking, how often are you using AI? And it's pretty gnarly what we got back so far. Like it was never daily, um, multiple times per day, once a day, or one or a couple times a month, but only so 95% of respondents said they're using it more, using it. Only 5% said they've never used generative AI, which is telling me like no matter what spectrum where you fall in, it is changing the world, changing the way we're doing stuff. But go back to what you're saying, it is just difficult. I think whenever we find those difficult circumstances, there's opportunities out there, and I feel that's where this convo is probably going to go. Like, what do I do? Where's the opportunity? How do I best attack this right now as a business owner?
Yeah, and that is the whole reason for writing this book, because we took the previous two editions of the Ask You Answer, and we formed this third edition, calling it Endless Customers. And if you want endless customers, and if as we look ahead, and you want to be built to last, you have to become a known and trusted brand. Brand matters more than it ever has in the history of the world, Donald. Because if you think about it, what's going on in the market? Well, businesses are getting less Google searches every single day right now. You cannot build your house on Google search. Can't do it. So that is a big problem. You go to Google, even if your first page results, Donald, this is what's crazy. You could be the first result in search engine pages, right? And you're like 3/4 of the way down the page. Why? Because they've got your AI answer, they've got Reddit posts. I mean, they've got YouTube videos. So rank one doesn't mean anything anymore, man.
No. That's crazy though to believe. It's crazy to think that, because I can tell you my behavior. For 2 months I used a Chat GPT's the plugin on my desktop. So when I did a Google search, it literally went to chat first. I found that I didn't find that too crazy. I wanted to get more options, but when I took it off, but I still don't go past probably more than 80% of the time past the first response that Google gives me to AI.
That's right. And so that's the whole zero click phenomenon, right? It's like instead of clicking that blue link that we've always clicked that was taking them to your website, now we're seeing a situation where they're not going to any website at all. So you've got that side of it. So it's like, okay, well, I can't be dependent on Google alone. And then you've got AI that is recommending now to people what they should use, who they should buy from. We're all going to get to a point where we just go to AI and we ask AI, okay, what should I do? And then AI is going to give us some answers. And so as a business, you've got to become known outside of Google. You can't be Google reliant. You've got to send enough signals out there so that AI is recommending you. And your brand's got to be strong enough so the world knows who you are. And you can't do it like we've done it for the last 20 some years. If you're still just saying, okay, I'm going to produce a piece of content and go after a keyword phrase, and I'm going to show up in search, man, you're really, really in trouble.
Dang it. Guys, we have to stop the plan.
Code red. Yeah.
So I want to know, like, going to the how, because in the book, you have four main pillars of how
Yeah.
we can go about. Maybe we can highlight what those four things are, and then we can come back and go through each for a few minutes.
Yeah. So, all right. In the book, which is I try to write this book so that it was almost like the EOS, like EOS is to traction, how it's a system. We wanted a system for your sales and marketing that was built to last at least for 10 years. We really have four fundamental pillars that we espouse in the book. And they sound simple on the surface, Donald, but once you get into it, you realize, wow, we're not doing that very well. So here's the four pillars of a known and trusted brand. So if your goal is, I want to become the most known and trusted brand in my market, which, by the way, trust is always going to be paramount to a business, regardless of what happens with AI, regardless of what happens to platforms, trust is going to be key. So with that, number one pillar, you got to be willing to say online what other companies, businesses in your space aren't willing to say. Sounds simple. Most aren't doing it. Okay. Number two, you got to be willing to show with video what others in your space aren't willing to show. You got to get really serious about video, and you got to show stuff that others aren't showing. Number three, you got to be willing to sell in a way that others aren't willing to sell. And then finally, number four, you got to be more human than others in your space are willing to be. And with that rise of AI and the technology, there has to be a human face behind the brand. We're aligned, much more attracted, much more to people than we are to brands. And so those are the four pillars. And if I said to most people, are you truly consistently saying, showing, and selling in a way that the majority of your competitors are not, and you're doing it in a more human way than they are, most are going to say, no, we're not, because most follow the norms that they've been given, Donald, right? They have this like industry set of rules, and they follow it. They're afraid to disrupt. They're afraid to circle outside the lines, and it costs them. We've never had more of a need to be different than we do right now. Sally Hogshead loves to say, different is better than better. And there's so much truth to that, because today you cannot continue to do it the way you've done it for the last 2+ decades.
Bro, I am so riveted to on what these things are, and I'm nodding and getting excited here because everything you're saying just like it just feels so right. So go back to the point of um the need to be different or need to be stand out more so today than ever, and then stay and everyone staying in line and doing the queue and following and being
Yeah,
safe.
right.
But I want to go back and figure out why is that the case? Why is it being safe? Is it, I mean, there's so many creative people out there. Is it just a lack of creativity, or is what's the reason that keeps us conformed, so to speak?
Man, in the final chapter of the book, and I write about something that most people haven't heard of before, but you're familiar with it, Donald, and it affects businesses, affects cultures, affects civilizations. It's what's called the pride cycle. So essentially, if you draw a circle, in the top of the circle, you've got prosperity, at the bottom, you've got pain. What happens is in our lives, at different points in our lives, we find ourselves in a place of pain, suffering, frustration. In other words, I need more leads. That's an example of I'm in pain. And because we're in pain, we say, I want to leave this pain. And so then we start to do things that we normally don't do. We do the little things. And much of those things are innovation, right? And so because we start to do the little things, and imagine this, you're now starting to come back up the circle from the bottom point of pain. You're coming back up the circle. You're doing the little things. You're making the extra call. You're making that extra video. You're sending that extra note, whatever that thing is. Now you come to this place of prosperity. You hit prosperity. You're like, life is good. But once you hit prosperity, suddenly this latency sets in and you stop doing those little things that got you to your success. And then you find yourself back to pain. That circle is what's known as the pride cycle. And it's literally the reason why you see companies come and go, innovate, stop innovating. And it's the ones that are willing to always live in that place of we're hungry and we've got to continue to do the little things and innovate and come from this place like we're in pain, even if you're the industry leader, right? Because ultimately, the rule breakers in every industry, they are the ones that become the rule makers, and everybody else becomes the rule followers.
My goodness, dude. I understood the pride cycle. I've never understood it in this manner, like putting it into the business context. But it makes so much sense. As a sales rep, I did this early on. I followed the process. We got put into
Yep.
Sandler training. I followed Sandler, bro. I started think my poop didn't stink at one point. I was making
Yep.
money, and I was like, this is so good. I don't need to follow the process anymore. And I deviated from it, and then I started bageling. I wasn't hitting my numbers, and I had to recommit and go back up to what I knew was the fundamentals and started to process. It started to progress, and
Well,
I go for it.
this is why in sales at the end of the month, you typically outperform in your second set of, like, you have your first 2 weeks and you have week 3 and 4 of the month. Generally, you sell much better in week 3 and 4. Why? Because you have so much urgency to reach your goals, your quota, whatever that thing is. And so that's when you're doing the little things. So that's an example. Like, literally, you see sales departments that run through the pride cycle every single month. They do the full circle every single month. You see this with marriages. You see this with relationships. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And this explains why people have this tendency to stop doing that thing that helped them to be so incredibly successful.
So dude, I am guys. If you probably haven't seen, if you're watching and not listening and not seeing the video, I'm so excited about this. So you got to check out the book, and we'll talk about it. Hopefully, you can hear my voice. I want to go deeper into how do we fix this, though, Marcus,
Yeah.
in the sense like the pillar number one of say online what others are not willing to say. Like, I
Yep.
know I need to make the change and I need to get out of the pride cycle, but I don't even know what I don't know when it comes to that I'm not saying that I'm saying the same thing as everybody else. Give me an example, or how do we tackle
Yeah.
this if I'm a leader?
So one thing that hasn't really changed from they ask you answer to now endless customers is what is known as the big five. And these are the five subjects that buyers are constantly researching, that they want to know, that they want to understand before they reach out to a company. Keep in mind, buyers are more informed than they've ever been. We are infovores. We want to be fed. We want to feel like we've got all of our answers before we reach out to a company. And so because of that, we have got to give them the answers to the questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns that they have. And that's really what you find in the big five. And the big five are questions they have about cost and price, which is, for many businesses, they still, in 2025, still don't talk at all about cost and price online, which is a huge mistake if you understand how this affects lead generation. Number two, anything that has to do with a problem, a negative, a con. So in other words, when somebody is really serious about buying something, they want to know, how could it blow up in my face? How could this go wrong? So we'll just call that problems. So you got costs, you got problems. Third is you got comparisons. We love to compare stuff online, brand versus brand, company versus company, etc. Number four, reviews. When it comes to reviews, the thing about reviews is we don't just want the good reviews. We want the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's what makes an honest review. And then finally, number five, that's what we call best, most, top. Think about how many times you've gone online and searched best, such and such, right? And so those are the big five: cost, problems, comparisons, reviews, best. They dictate the economy in terms of the way people search. Yet still, most businesses aren't willing to talk about those five things. And by the way, those five things apply just as much to video as they do to any written content that you have online, just as much to your social media strategy as well. I mean, if you want to really like change your industry, just talk a lot about money and how money works in your industry, how pricing works in the industry. You see, the problem, Donald, is when people hear me say, pricing, immediately they get in their own head and they think,
Yes.
okay, got to give an exact price. We're not saying that at all. What you have to do is you've got to teach the market how to buy that thing that you sell in your space. That's what you have to learn to do. You have to learn to teach them, okay, so there's different tiered systems. Like, for example, there's a good, better, best, and there's low end, middle end, high end, whatever that thing is. And you talk about why some companies are expensive, why some companies are cheap. But when you do this, they're able to say, oh, I understand. I understand. You see, the number one reason why people leave a website is because they can't find what they're looking for. The number one thing they're looking for that they can't find is a sense for pricing. Now, a lot of sales experts actually screw this part up on the marketing side, because we know, Donald, from a sales standpoint, that once you meet with a prospect, generally, you're best served to discuss pricing at the end. But it doesn't work that way for the buyer's journey. For the buyer's journey, which is the entire point of time where they say, I have a need, I have a problem, to that point where they research that problem, to that point where they start to find companies, they reach out to a company, they talk to a salesperson, and they eventually get a price. The first question they have once they know they have a problem is, I just want to get a sense, like roughly, what am I looking at here? For example, if I'm a business that's never used a sales trainer before, and I'm thinking about hiring a sales trainer, one of the first questions I'm going to have is like, roughly, what does it even cost to work with a sales trainer? Nobody taught me that in college. You see what I'm saying? And so I need that. And so this is the key here is you got to be willing to address these types of things at the beginning. And as soon as they get that answer and they get a sense for it and they're able to say, oh, now I understand, then they can stop worrying about that and they can move forward with the rest of the research process. The problem is when a company says, I'm not going to talk about pricing whatsoever until that final moment after they've talked with me and I presented them their solution. Classic sales 101. No, you are missing out on leads that you can't even fathom. I mean, you're missing out on hundreds and hundreds of leads because you're not meeting the buyer where they are.
Oh my goodness. I am loving this. And go back to that point, the point there about the price. It's not just the number, like from what you're saying. Like honestly, like I feel when I work with people, that's the first thing they say. I don't want to share my price because others might see what the cost is, blah blah blah, and I might push them away. But I'm like, if they can't afford it, it's not gonna. It doesn't matter how much trickery you do. If I have $5 and your thing costs $50, there's no matter how much you trick me, I cannot pay for it like physically. I just can't. Um,
Well, the thing about that too, Donald, is great education is not the thing that scares us online. What
mm,
scares us online is ignorance. And so
yes.
it's not when someone says, hey, listen, here's what you need to understand as you're looking for a sales trainer. Here's some rough price ranges that you're going to find in the market. See, that doesn't scare someone. What scares someone is when they can't find squat, because that's what causes them to click away. That's what causes them to reach out to someone else who was willing to address the question.
Yeah. Marcus, I'm loving this. um, I want to go deeper into the next one. Video.
Yeah.
Show with video. Why is video so big right now? And well, we know big video is big, but why is it so big to you? Why do you feel it's so important? Because it's number 2 on the list that you have as a pillar.
Yeah. This is, in order for a company to become that known brand, you've got to embrace video to its fullest. And you have to start, and this sounds almost extreme, but it's not at all, Donald. You have to see yourself as a media company. Look at the sales evangelist. That is a media company that happens to do sales training services, right? It's like that's a media company is what it is, right? If you look at like Marcus Sheridan, this is like Marcus Sheridan as a brand, it's a media company, and then it has all these little businesses that are connected to it. But it starts with that, and it starts with video. If you're going to connect with people like you need to today, and if you look at over 82% of all the time we spend on the internet is video based. Is video based.
82%.
Over 82%. Yeah. Yeah. And so if you have a teenager, that number for them is more like over 95%. You know what I'm saying? It's like these are just wild numbers. And so to think that you can dominate the market by having a bunch of beautiful text, I don't care if you're Victor Hugo, you are not going to stand out from the market if you are not getting serious about video today. I mean, you've got to be very serious about it. And you got to say everything we do, we can show and is interesting. And the problem is you have a lot of folks, Donald, that are like, we're an accounting firm. We're not sexy at all. What would we show? I'm like, man, you are missing the mark. You are missing it because there's story and people have questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns, and they need to see it and not just, 2,000 years ago, we heard for the first time, seeing is believing. That has remained true, and it's more true than it's ever been today. People want to see the thing. And so you got to get serious about video. A lot of folks have slept on this, and now they're paying the price.
So I love what you shared about that we're a media company. We did literally what happened with our brand. And I think you remember from way back when I was a software sales rep, and all I did was let me just share stuff that was working for me. I slept on the video component because I said I'll do the audio side and not do video, but my client started to ask for videos, and we started sharing more videos and sharing some of that on LinkedIn and so forth. So that worked. But in 2019, when one of our clients came to us, saw what we were doing, and said, "Can you show us how to do that? Can you help us use podcasts to create content to generate leads?" And I turned them down because I wasn't in the business of producing content. But then I woke up and he threw money at us. But then I asked my production team, can we do that? And they agreed. And we started producing for other brands. And we produced for some pretty decent brands. And we rebranded it because we saw, like, honestly, and I'm saying this to the world, and I think I shared on one of the episodes, like, most of my time right now is with our new brand, our rebranded company, Blue Mango Studios, because TSE is going and I have other people to assist, but that side is even more so exciting. And I've seen we're in this white cats. I mean, it's funny you mentioned about the boring industries. That's what we call it. So we go after a lot manufacturers. We have accounting firms. We have some of these people that just never seen the light of day before when it comes to like content. And they're rich with stuff, but they just didn't know, like, people want to hear that. And which goes back to the topic now, what you brought up, like, yes, I'm an accounting firm, but I don't want to be the face of it. I am a boring accountant. How do I still create videos in my business for that? If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I'm going to push back on that because if somebody became an entrepreneur, they've officially lost the right to say, I don't want to meet the market where the market is. And part of these pillars, the fourth one, was be more human than others are willing to be, right? Well, part of that means putting a face behind the brand. It's like, if you think about all these different brands that I could, mention, it's like everybody knows who the Kardashians are, but you may or may not know their brands, right? It's like, what's more known, Elon or Tesla? It's like the person is always the thing that is more known. And so there's a lot of CEOs that have said, well, I didn't get into business so that I could become this like public figure. Yeah, but that's what the market wants today. And so you've got to be more willing to put more people in front of the camera, not just behind the camera or not just in your, perch or your office. You got to be willing to put yourself out there. That's what's going to drive more trust, and it's going to attract, more people. It's that old adage. Like, there's a reason why we still love, Colonel Sanders from KFC, even though he's been dead for decades, right? It's because it's like, there's a face there, man. There's a face, and I trust that dude. And so it's like, okay, that's my Colonel Sanders. But, if I say to you, Pizza Hut, what face do you see? You don't see a face. You don't see a face, right? And so the face matters, man. It matters a lot. So that's a really big part of this. And I know we did I kind of skipped the third pillar. Can I talk about the third pillar for a second?
Please. Yeah, please.
Selling in ways that others aren't willing to sell. I'm going to just break down a couple things for you here. There's a megatrend that is self-service. Gartner recently said that 75% of all buyers would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience, which is a gut punch for some sales pros, but it shouldn't be, because that's an opportunity if you're really paying attention. What this means is people don't hate salespeople. They just don't want to work with a salesperson until they feel truly confident, ready, informed. I'm not going to screw this up, right? And so what does a business need to do to take advantage of this? Well, self-service. This means that you have interactive opportunities on your website mainly where people can get answers where in the past they would have talked to a human to get that answer. For example, the most effective way to do this is through what's called a pricing estimator. This is what I call it. And a pricing estimator is a simple tool that allows someone to ask a series of questions. For example, if somebody came to you right now and said, how much would it cost to start a new podcast, right? For example, right? Well, then you're going to ask them a series of questions. And then from that, you're going to say, well, based on what you just said, I suspect that your range would roughly be from here to here. So a pricing estimator tool does that exact same thing, except now they haven't been forced to talk to a human.
Yeah.
And they've been able to walk through this experience. I actually have a mountain of data on this now because, Donald, I started a software company called PriceGuide.ai. And it's it's literally the world's simplest pricing estimator that allows you to build a pricing estimator in less than 30 minutes working on your website. Here's what we found over and over again. When somebody puts a pricing estimator on their website, on their homepage, you got to really show it on your homepage, and you have a call to action around it that says something like get instant estimate or get instant pricing, key phrase, instant, you see a 300% lift in conversions from your website. So what that means is I've had now hundreds of companies that are using this tool. What they see consistently over and over again is if they were getting 5 leads a week from their website, the moment they add a pricing estimator, now they're getting 15 leads a week. That's extraordinary, the potential revenue difference, all because of a pricing estimator, because they addressed that first question that people have: am I in the game or am I not?
That is a game changer. I pulled it up here and I have it, and I'm gonna put it in the show notes. It's like totally legit. Like,
Yeah, it's amazing. Let me give you one other crazy thing that we've been doing with my agency at Impact, which is pretty dope. Which is, we have discovered, this is wild, Don, you're going to appreciate this. When someone is given a choice of what salesperson they work with, and they can choose it on your website, closing rates double every single time.
what?
So imagine this situation. Imagine this. Let's say you're looking for a real estate agent. Somebody goes to an agency website and they see like 7 real estate agents listed. They see their image. They see an introductory video. They get to read their bio, and they choose which realtor they work with. Closing rates double. This is across all industries. You think we're going to this world where we get to select, like we like Uber because we can select, right?
Yeah.
Self-service of sales reps is the future, dude. It is so powerful when you allow the person, because now they feel like they are more invested in it. Very powerful. So we talk about that in the book as well. So there's 5 types of self-service tools. We just mentioned like 1.5 of them just now, but the biggest one by far is pricing estimators, man. That's a total game changer.
Yeah, that one. I was thinking about it. We're in the our team is doing some changes and tweaks, and as we're doing this rebrand, but literally I'm sending this to them so we can put that in.
It's wild. Crazy.
It makes total sense.
Wouldn't you like to choose the sales rep you work with if you had the choice?
Yeah, because now the other part about the thing that when you said it like that, I go back to the first point, trying staying online what others are not willing to say, and I kind of go back in the idea of doing, which goes back to the differentiator concept, because everyone in our industry would not like. I feel like we go back into this is the way it has always been, and this is what has worked for us, but we don't pay attention to how we behave, because all of us like go back. You point out Uber. When you said Uber, I started thinking about Amazon. I can choose to do Prime. I can choose to do the same day. Even with Prime, I can do same day. I can do within an hour,
right,
or whatnot. When it comes to like my Uber Eats, I can choose the location and the food that I want. The stores are still there, the traditional stores, but I choose the way I want it and how I want to get it to my house. And even with Uber, like I choose. Sometimes I was in Dubai and I wanted to show out, and it was pretty cheap using their Dubai Uber service. I was driving at Uber Black because it was super cheap at that point. But
yeah.
I was choosing to do that, and I could elect because of the circumstances. I wanted to show up looking pretty, big deal. So,
Yeah.
but the point is, we do it. But then when you come to the professional side, I just got to do exactly what we've done since the past 20 years.
Right.
And I think that's where
you got to, and that's where that pride cycle creeps in, because what you don't want is pain and suffering to force you to innovate, to force you to do those little things that you should be doing.
Because that's too late at that point, I feel, in some instances.
Then you're way behind the 8 ball, man.
Yeah.
So you've got this opportunity now to really start to say, okay, sure, none of my competitors have a full-time videographer, but I'm going to get a full-time videographer on staff. I'm going to go all in on video. That's an example of this. None of my competitors have a pricing estimator on their website. None of my competitors allow the prospect to choose who they're going to, who their sales rep is going to be. I'm going to be the first one to do that. Like, that's the mentality you got to have today, friends.
And I can imagine what the video is like too, like as this from the sales rep standpoint, because say I'm from Mississippi, I may not necessarily want to deal with that New York seller. Like I just feel like I want to deal with somebody that's going to be chilled and a little bit laid back and relaxed with me. Like sometimes people get turned
Oh,
off by the brand, and
sure.
it's not because of an interaction with one person, but if I choose that person, does that make a difference? And I think that's a
makes
genius
makes
idea.
makes a huge difference. And there's all these arguments for it. People want choice. They want agency, and when they're able to use it, now there's a greater sense of personal investment.
My definition of sales, Marcus, I learned is, and I borrowed it a little bit and adopted it over the years. But my job is not to convince somebody to buy, but to educate them enough that they convince themselves. And I
That's right.
go back to what you're sharing here. It is that idea. You have the choice. You have control. I'm giving you the elements, and I'm giving you the things to be able to educate you that you get to choose. Whether you see the price, you choose based on the seller you want to go with. I'm giving you the opportunity to choose because you're going to feel more in control, and you're going to feel more committed to it.
That's
Gosh
what
dang
everybody
it. Come
wants,
on.
man.
This has been awesome. The book, everywhere books are sold.
Yes.
All the major places.
Endlesscustomers.com
Yeah.
is the best place to get it. Endlesscustomers.com. You can pre-order it, and you can get there's some freebies, some throw-ins and stuff that we've got set up. It's pretty cool. So check it out at endlesscustomers.com. But yeah, I am so grateful that you've had me on your pod here, Donald, and just to catch back up, man, because I just love your energy. Your energy is contagious, and your audience is lucky to have you. I mean that, man.
Well, it's fun to be able to bring folks like you on and get me pumped, because the secret that I try to do is I try to look at content that I could benefit from, makes me more excited for it, and allow me to come in with that energy. I'm not looking just to get an interview. I'm looking to learn, and you taught us. And I usually have my tablet, but I lost my stylus, so I have like a page full of notes.
So fun.
It's fun stuff. Marcus, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll drop to the link to the site. And if you're listening, go down into the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and take advantage of that. And I promise you're going to be well fed. Marcus, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Man, I'm telling you, I'm heading over to this website right now. I'm looking at that price guide. I'm about to sign up for that, literally for our podcast agency. And like something like this it's needed. Like it just works. And if you're a sales leader, I recommend you check it out. If you're a business owner, check it out. If you're a sales rep, send it to your sales leaders, because we can't keep doing the same thing that we've always done and expect to get different results when it's becoming so cluttered and such a big distraction in the marketplace. I love the idea of the sell different than others, helping people to choose. I think there's a lot to that, and we could take advantage of it. And then also just the simple fact of you being different. He outlined it so well, and it was this principle is powerful, and we need to take advantage of that. And you can find you'll find some amazing ways once you start thinking about it and analyze with your team how we can stand out different. Anyways, I recommend you go check out Marcus. Go to the website. It's endlesscustomers.com, endlesscustomers.com, endlesscustomers.com. And there's a link down in the show notes. You're going to love it. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to build strong pipeline. I want you to accelerate deals and close faster. But most importantly, I want you to raise your level of thinking and go out and do big things. See you on the next one.